TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donation. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, the Israeli Air Force conducted an intensive bombardment of Syrian military installations last night as part of a retaliatory response for an unidentified Syrian cell that sought to plant explosive devices along the border with Israel a day prior. The Israeli Air Force concluded a joint exercise with the U.S. Air Force's Central Command dubbed Enduring Lightning II, in which F-35 squadrons from both militaries trained to deal with various aerial and ground strategic threats. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has publicly ruled out any negotiations with the United States over the Islamic Republic's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The Israeli Air Force conducted a series of precision bombardments of Syrian military installations in the southwestern countryside of Al-Quneitra Governorate and the Al-Ahmar Hill, all of which are situated along the internationally recognized armistice line with the Jewish state. According to the IDF spokesperson's unit, the aerial attack came as a response to an attempt by 4 unidentified assailants to place improvised explosive devices on the Israeli security barrier a day prior. The IDF noted in its statement that fighter jets, attack helicopters, and aircraft struck military targets in southern Syria belonging to the Syrian Armed Forces, or SAF, while further specifying that the targets struck include observation posts and intelligence collection systems, anti-aircraft artillery facilities, and command and control systems in SAF bases. The Israeli military's statement also reiterated once again that the IDF holds the Syrian government responsible for all activities on Syrian soil and will continue operating with determination against any violation of Israeli sovereignty. In tandem, Syrian military sources confirmed that the Israeli aerial bombardment took place 40 minutes after 10 o'clock p.m., which resulted in some material losses after the Syrian aerial defense array failed to intercept the numerous incoming precision-guided projectiles. It remains unclear whether there were any Syrian casualties as a result of the Israeli retaliatory attack. Meanwhile, in eastern Syria, unidentified aircraft conducted intensive aerial bombardments targeting Iranian positions in the eastern countryside of Deir ez-Zor Governorate. According to several reports that were corroborated by TV7, militant installations manned by Iranian proxy militias in the area near Al-Seka, Al-Bukamal, and the Imam Ali base sustained devastating damage, including at least 15 casualties that were classified by intelligence sources as non-Syrian operatives. Consequently, the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights cited local sources as noting that military vehicles affiliated to the targeted forces have transported dead and injured militiamen to Iraq, while the Iranian forces in Al-Bukamal are now on high alert, amassing more troops. It is important to mention that while the targeted area of operations has been subject to past Israeli activities aimed at thwarting the Islamic Republic of Iran from entrenching militarily in Syria, the IDF spokesperson's unit did not confirm nor deny its involvement in response to TV7's request for comment. However, it is interesting to note that the Israeli Air Force concluded a joint exercise with the U.S. Air Force Central Command, dubbed Enduring Lightning II, which took place for the second time this year as part of the two forces' exercise program. As part of the exercise, the 421st Squadron of the U.S. Air Force, which operates the F-35 fighter jet, trained alongside the Israeli Air Force's 140th Squadron, which operates the Adir F-35I fighter jet, and the 122nd Squadron, which operates the Nachshon aircraft and is responsible for conducting air traffic control. In a written statement, the IDF spokesperson's unit highlighted that the exercise took place in southern Israel, where advanced 5th-generation Israeli and American F-35 fighter jets trained to deal with various aerial and ground strategic threats. The forces work together as a team with joint communications in order to locate and neutralize each threat. The statement further stressed that the two air forces maintain close cooperation, including mutual learning and sharing of lessons learned. This exercise illustrates the close relationship between the air forces and military echelons and enhances the cooperation of knowledge and capabilities of the F-35 and the Israeli Air Force's operational abilities. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized Jerusalem's resolve to do whatever necessary in order to defend the State of Israel. Speaking to the press during a visit of the IDF Homefront Command's operational headquarters to deal with the relentless spread of the coronavirus, Premier Netanyahu reiterated his warning to Israel's enemies, advising them to take his words seriously.
אנחנו פגענו בחוליה ועכשיו פגענו גם במשלחים. אנחנו נעשה מה שאנחנו צריכים כדי להגן על עצמנו. אני מציע לכולם, לרבות חיזבאללה, לקחת את זה בחשבון. אלה לא אמירות סרק, אלא אמירות עם משקל כבד של מדינת ישראל וצה"ל. כדאי שיתייחסו לזה ברצינות.
Israeli security officials informed TV7 that the level of preparedness along the northern front, including Lebanon in particular, remains high. They also reiterated that the security establishment leveled a warning to the Beirut government. Any attack against Israeli sovereignty, civilians, or troops would elicit a retaliatory response that would devastate the state of Lebanon as a whole. Turning now to Tehran, where Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei ruled out any negotiations with the United States over the Islamic Republic's nuclear and ballistic missile programs after a number of statements by senior officials in both Washington and Tehran alluded to a window of diplomatic opportunity. Nevertheless, in a speech broadcast live on a regime television-controlled network, the Islamic Republic's supreme leader emphasized that other than the United States and Israel, he does not oppose negotiating with anyone, claiming it to be a matter of national honor.
یعنی میگه شما امکانات دفاعیتون رو کنار بگذارید، شما اقتدار منطقه‌ایتون رو کنار بگذارید، شما قدرت ملیتون رو کنار بگذارید. خب اینا رو که نمیشه هیچ انسانی که با شرف هست در علاقمند به حفظ مصالح کشوره که زیر بار این حرفا نمیره. مذاکره یعنی اینی که بنده مخالفت میکنم با مذاکره معناش اینه. ولی ما با همه جای دنیا غیر از آمریکا و غیر از رژیم جعلی صهیونیست خب مذاکره میکنیم، با همه ارتباط داریم، مذاکره میکنیم، میشینیم پا میشیم، مشکلی نداریم. آمریکا مسئلهش اینه.